All right. Good morning, everybody. Tara here with a morning. Wait a minute. Wifey Wake Up, No Makeup podcast. I'm going to get that right. And good morning. It's another beautiful morning here. And hopefully it is there too. So, first of all, let's get into it right away. Today's tip is keep dating, and specifically keep dating each other. So, I'm not talking about any polyamorous stuff. I mean, keep your commitment to each other, and part of that is going to be work, but it's not like hard, laborious work. I mean, it's fun stuff. And what I'm saying is, keep dating each other. And I say the sooner you can do this, the better. Like if you are already dating and you're starting to get serious, keep up that dating vibe. If you're just married, be cautious about diving into life and starting all the regular stuff. Keep your schedule, keep your life free enough so that you can continue dating each other. And if you've already found yourself in those routines, in those ruts, first of all, say hello in the chat, in the comments, and let everybody know. The sooner the sooner that you can establish these habits, the better, and keep them up. Because once you get into those routines and into those ruts, you really have to pull yourself out. And keeping on dating each other can really help not only prevent, but can take care of so many common issues that I think really lead to divorce. And we're not going to get into those. We're going to get into the solutions, the ideas, and what I mean by keeping on dating each other. First of all, if you haven't done this in a while, this is one of our favorite things to do. And this is a good reminder for me and John to do this. John is my husband as well. It's especially nice in a car ride, and a car ride when you're going to a restaurant or a coffee shop where you have a moment to chat. Start the conversation of reminiscing of what it was like in your dating relationship. And even if you are dating, you can ask each other some similar questions like, what was it that first attracted to me? What was it that first attracted you to me? Or what was something that surprised you? Or do you remember a certain outfit that I was wearing that really stood out to you, that really got the attraction going? And just questions like that that get the memories going, and that helps to get you into back to that time when you were dating, because that love, that you are still in there. And I think as life goes on and we get into the routines of life, it's easy to forget that we are still those people. And for years, John and I would have people, we were married 7 or 10 years, and we still had people ask if we were newlyweds. And it was a terrific compliment. And I think due to a lot of this, where we would try to keep, not even so much try, but it was a natural part of our being at that time in particular. And so just reminiscing can help bring that up. And especially if you find yourself really in those ruts, it's a great exercise. It's a lot of fun to do. So let's see. Assuming, of course, that you met in a way that is really worth reminiscing. So, of course, if you met through someone else that was maybe someone you might not want to bring back into the scenario, maybe more specifically ask those questions like, what was the outfit, or what was the characteristic, or what was one of our first dating experience? What was a date that really stood out to you? Those can be a lot of fun. So number one, I would say definitely reminiscing. That will just help you get back into that dating energy. And then these other things you'll more easily remember what it was like at those stages, and to bring back the characteristics will be even easier. So one of those, I'm going to take a sip of water here. Remember when you were dating, and especially when you were trying to attract that other person, that you were on your best behavior. You were sitting straight, you were, just, everything was in order, And your demeanor, your tone, you really watch, like, how is your voice, men and women, like, is it soft enough, or, not being too demanding or harsh. And that especially is something to really bring back in. Now, of course, I am speaking from 24 years of marriage, and these are things that I still work on. By no means am I saying that I've got these things perfect. These are things that I have to remind myself as well. And so the demeanor, particularly the tone of voice, that is something I need to be aware of. It's easy to get into, you know, do this. Even if it's polite, will you do that? And it's usually when it catches you off, it'll catch you off guard. And so just being aware of, what is my tone? What is my daily tone of voice? And, even set up a recorder, and, as you're talking, doing your morning routine, and listen to it. Listen to, what does your voice sound like? It can sound totally different in your head when you're saying things than when you go back and you listen to it. And I can attest to that after doing many, 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 many hours of video, hosting classes, and so forth. It is absolutely amazing, and it can be very difficult to watch or listen to yourself afterwards, but it can be so incredibly enlightening. If you want to take it one step further, since I was talking about that, record a talk between the two of you, and go back, if you have any faculties like this, if you have any abilities like this, go through and even scrub through the video. And by scrub, I mean you take the play bar, and you'll basically see things frame by frame, and see what your face does. See how you react to one another. It's so fascinating, and you'll see things that you can't see in regular time. Okay, that wasn't in my notes, but just because I share from experience, these are like little clues and things that can really help you along the way. But number one, I would say, number one was reminiscing, just to kind of get you into this and get started. And number two would be demeanor. How is your demeanor, especially in your voice? And then, of course, also in your gestures. Next, I would say, is how you greet him. Remember when you're dating and you saw that other person, and you're just like, you were leaping out of your skin, maybe especially if maybe you weren't to that phase where you were really greeting each other yet. You're just kind of holding it in still a little bit, and you're just like your essence went and jumped at him before your body actually met him. And that's a great memory. That's just a great, it's just wonderful. And something that I learned just a couple of years ago, because John told me directly, because I didn't know this before this, is how much he appreciated when I greeted him at the door. So it was easy for me where I would be working at my desk or at the table. I was in a very busy time in business in particular, and granted, I can always in my mind think and make it be a busy time for me. And so, and then as the years went by, I just didn't see the importance, or recall how important that would be. And he told me one day, I really like you to greet me when I come home. And, I would greet him like, from the table, hey, honey, how's it going? But that wasn't enough for him. And so I really listened to him. And now when he arrives, more often than not, I'll get up and I'll give him a hug, how are things going? And he said that's all that he really wanted, is just that physical, even brief acknowledgement. Didn't have to be a full-on conversation, because that's what I was concerned about. I was like, okay, I'm going to break away from my stuff and not be able to get back into what I'm doing. And he's like, no, I just need, that little bit of acknowledgement, but physical, actually getting up and acknowledging me. And then, of course, I look at it and, I love that too. A simple example is even just when our cats do it, that they're happy to see that you're home. And these little things occur to me, and it's like, oh, I see how important that is, um, even in those little ways. So that's another one, and that your hubby probably won't mind either. Kind of along with that is affection. And it's very easy as life goes on that we get busy, and it's just, and I'm especially speaking for myself. I get into, I've got to clean up the kitchen. I'm folding some laundry, especially if you're working, and then of course kids. It's very easy to be distracted by, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. It's really important to set aside some time, whether maybe you're watching your favorite show together, maybe it is right before bed, because then it leads into other things if it's going to lead into other things. But taking that time to show affection. And if you set aside time for it, so for example, for us, my husband loves getting his feet rubbed. And so it's not every evening that we'll watch a show, but we have certain evenings that we have certain things that we kind of our schedule in that sense. But that's my time where I rub his feet as well, and that's something that he really enjoys. A really interesting note that came up in our relationship that John brought up as well is there was a time period where I wasn't giving him that affection that he really craves. And some people crave it more than others. There's the book called The 5 Love Languages, which I think is really insightful. So if people have different ways that they perceive love, that they perceive and also give love. Usually the way that they like to receive love is how they give it. So let's see, pop quiz, if I can remember. So acts of service. So if you love it when your husband chips in the kitchen and does things to help you out, that you're probably an acts of service person. Words of affirmation. There's also physical touch. There's a few more, but I don't want this video to go too long. Check out the book. It's really insightful. What's really helpful also to know, like I said, is you tend to give the love language that you like to receive. But the trick is that might not be the other person's love language. So, for example, I love when my husband rubs my shoulders, but that's not how I primarily perceive that he loves me. He, on the other hand, if I'm not touching him enough, he's like, I'm being dramatic, but he's like, oh my God, you don't love me anymore, right? That's what it seems like. And I'm like, no, I just kind of lost track of time where I got to do this, I got to do that. And it's so important to him that I make sure that I have these times where I give him that physical attention. Something that he brought to my awareness too, which I think was incredibly insightful, is that he said he found himself kind of manifesting aches or things that he wanted me to massage out, perhaps subconsciously, just to get that physical attention. And he's like, I just became aware of that, and I just don't want it to go down that route. He became consciously aware, which helps. But that was also a real big insight for me, because we do that. That's natural as human beings. I mean, my cat does it. If I'm not paying enough attention to her, she starts being naughty. And it is not that I can pay attention to her all the time, but I do. She's still really a kitten. I need to give her enough so that she doesn't find other ways of getting it. So we are very much still like that, even when we're adults. Another thing is when you're dating, remember how you just like do your hair just right and makeup and make sure you're dressed, just like everything complimented you, your legs were shaved, that sort of thing. And that, especially when you have kids, I know it's really challenging, but just doing as much as you can. And that can make all the difference. And every once in a while, if you're like, I work from home, so it'd be very easy for me to be in my yoga gear all day. But I'll make a point of even the stuff that I wear at home for work that is still, like something like this. It's kind of a little more casual in a way, but it's something that has shape to it is actually something my husband chose for me. And so I try to not be slouchy. And it's very easy to do. It's very easy to be slouchy, but you'd be surprised it's not too hard to find things that can be comfortable, that you can work in, that can also look really nice. Okay, I'm going long today, but these are some really helpful tips. Also, remember you would do kind of the little things. Maybe you found out that he really likes brownies, and so you're like, oh, I'm gonna make you my special brownies, or I'm gonna look up a recipe, or maybe you get his mom's recipe and then you try making it, and it's kind of like you're doing tryouts, right? Hopefully you've tried hers first and you have an example to work from. But my point is that we would generally do the little things, right? You'd find out what he likes and you would do those things for him. And we have to remember that, especially if we want that ourselves, if we want him to remember those little things, if we're remembering him, he's more likely to remember us. Now, guys are different. He might not remember those things. But I think one thing that John is really right about when we talk about this in our podcast, the John and Tara podcast, is that he says that actually the responsibility of the romanticism is on the man. And I think that's kind of a tall order, but I should ask him why. I think I've asked him why, but I don't know if I've gotten a clear answer. But I wonder if it's because if a man takes that on it as his responsibility, he's more likely to at least do some of it. But I think as women, we might think that we're romantic, but it's easy to get away from it. We just need to remember the little things. The little things really do matter. Just like for us, him doing something little really, really can add up. And my first advice is, boy, if you can keep doing this as early on in your relationship as possible, do that. Keep up these habits. If you're already in the routine and you're already in the rut, and I remember when John and I were going through a real rough time in our relationship, I didn't want to do anything of these things. Like, I was upset with him, and I had to just get back to what is it that I love about him. And that's where the reminiscing can really, really help, especially if you're in that rough patch, is remembering what you do love about that person, because likely 95% of those characteristics are still there. They've just been buried under life routines, experiences that you've built up and kind of like have calcified, and you just need to chip away at that. And a really good reminiscing session can do that for you. And doing it together, maybe do a little homework on your own and answer those questions for yourself so you're ready when you get together, and so that you can share your answers, especially when he sees your face beaming in a way that he hasn't seen in a while. Men really respond to that, to your demeanor, and they want to please you, assuming you married a good guy, right? And I'm going to assume that for you. And sometimes it's been so long since you felt those feelings of like that loving longingness, that they haven't seen that face in a long time. And bringing up those memories can also show in your face. Bring back those memories for him, what he saw in your face, and that can help rekindle things for him. And especially if you've been through a real rough patch, it can take, he might not have something to share right away. It might take a few, you saying a few things and just having that demeanor, and honestly, maybe not even expecting that he shares something. Maybe it's something that you share with him, and get that ball rolling. Okay, let me know how that works for you all. Everyone, I covered it from dating experiences and all the way to rough patches in your marriage. And that's good inspiration too, that if you are dating, or early in your marriage, write those things down because it can be so easy to forget. It's interesting, even as we reminisce, what John will remember and what I will remember. And so that's a great inspiration to write those things down. Well, nowadays, you guys, everybody has smartphones, so that really helps. We have to go by memory and the few photos that we did take. So good on you for that. That will be helpful. So have a wonderful day, everybody. Make sure to like, subscribe. If this resonates with you, or maybe a conversation you had with your friend the other day, send that to your friend. And love hearing from you. We've been getting some very interesting comments and inspirational comments as well. So love hearing from you. Take care. Have a wonderful day. Remember, I'm here every day at 6 a.m., except for Sundays. And we're covering everything from marriage to dating tips because, like I mentioned today, what you did in dating can certainly help your marriage. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Bye-bye.